Welcome to the channel. So I made a huge mistake the other day by purchasing a 1999 Chevy Tahoe. And if you saw the vlog a few days ago, you saw me and Big John riding out to Flint, Michigan to purchase the 1999 Tahoe. Well, I want to fill you guys in on exactly what happened with the purchase of that vehicle. So we drove all the way to Flint, Michigan, just outside of Flint, Michigan. It was about a hour and a half drive away from home. And we get there, we go to look at the car, and it was raining. It was hard to tell, what was going on with the vehicle and everything. So the car was for sale for $2,500. And I wanted to try to find something that I could use for my snow crew that wasn't a newer vehicle. It's a 20-year-old vehicle, but something that I could, send out, would be safe. Don't necessarily have to be beautiful, but for just snow shovels and things like that, and maybe just to mess around with a little bit on YouTube as well. So I figured the Tahoes were good because, unlike pickup trucks, they never really saw any work, whereas the trucks seem to all have been used for some kind of a work purpose, which seems like a lot of the pickup trucks are more worn out, especially from, a few years old or even 20 years old. There's really very few pickup trucks that are 20 years old on the road at all. But it seemed like there were a lot of the Tahoes available in the Suburbans and things like that. So I took a look at this Tahoe, and for $2,500, it had supposedly 180,000 miles. So I get to the car and I look at it, and the vehicle had like 220,000 miles. And I asked the seller, why did it say 80,000 miles if the vehicle really has 215,000 miles? And the owner of the vehicle said that the reason that it had 180,000 miles listed on the ad is because the engine has 180,000 miles, but the body has 215,000 miles. So right away, that should have been a red flag. Right away, that should have been a red flag not to purchase this vehicle, because why would you go through the trouble of installing a 180,000 mile engine inside of a vehicle when, why would you go through all the work? Why would you go through all the work of installing an engine in a vehicle for an engine that has 180,000 miles? It seems like if you're going to do the work, you should put a lower mileage engine in the vehicle. At most, maybe 100,000 miles. Maybe even less for a year, for a vehicle of that year. Or maybe a rebuilt engine. So right away, it was kind of shady in the fact that he lied about the mileage on the vehicle. The vehicle actually had 215,000 miles, not 180,000 miles. So I'm already kind of turned off at this point about, the whole deal. So I'm like, well, we made this drive. I'll continue to look at the vehicle. So as I'm looking at the vehicle, all these other people start pulling up to check out the vehicle at the same time that I'm looking at it. And it seems like they're just pulling over on the side of the road. And there's this guy, he pulls up, he goes, "How much is the truck? How much is the truck? I'm ready right now. I got cash in hand." And I'm like, "Chill out, man. I'm looking at the truck. You have to wait until I'm done." He's like, all right. He had it like hung out for a minute and he left. Then another guy pulls up in a red truck. He goes, "All right, I'm ready to buy it. I got cash in hand." And I'm sitting here thinking like, I'm still looking, but who? And I asked the buyer, I said, "Who's got first dibs on the truck? Like, who's first in line to get the truck?" And the buyer goes, "Well, you are." So I'm thinking like, all right. Instead of like really going through the vehicle more, I thought about it. I looked at it real quick. I kind of took it for a quick spin, and I said, "Okay, I'll take the truck." I went and told the guy. I ended up taking the truck. So, sorry, but I took the truck. So I get the keys to the truck. I drive away. There's all of a sudden a red light. There's a red light up the street. So it turns yellow. First it turns yellow kind of quick on me, then it turns red. So I hit the brakes. I hit the brakes really quickly, and the vehicle just spins around in a circle and totally loses control, spins all over the road. I'm like, I almost blew the intersection, but I stopped just in time, but I was like pointed the wrong way because it did like a 360 in the middle of the road. The brakes were so bad and it was raining, and one of the wheels grabbed and the vehicle just went spinning down the road. I was like, what the heck is going on here? I've never experienced anything like that before, and I was like extremely nervous because I had to drive this vehicle like an hour and a half away all the way back home. So we had to stop at the auto parts store and pick up some wiper blades because the wiper blades were totally shot on the car, which is probably a sign that I shouldn't have bought the car, because if the wiper blades are shot, that tells you that the person driving the car did not care about the vehicle at all. That should have been a red flag not to purchase the vehicle, along with the mileage being inaccurately posted on the ad, and the fact that the person installed the seller or whoever installed an engine with 180,000 miles and actually told me he installed an engine with 180,000 miles. It make more sense to just say that, you know, if this were true, if you really put an engine in with 180,000 miles, you might as well not even bring that up if you're selling the vehicle. It doesn't add any value to the vehicle. So all that should have been a red flag, but I succumbed to the pressure of all these other people lining up to allegedly buy the car. But for all I know, those were his friends who showed up to make an offer for the vehicle. I don't know if those were real buyers for the car. It could have been just his buddies that he sent the text out, hey, come pretend like you want the car right now, come pretend like he's here, come pretend like you want the car. I don't know for sure if they were really going to buy the car or not, but whatever, if that was part of a scam, it'd be pretty elaborate, but it definitely worked. So I didn't even haggle the price. You know, usually I'm not really a haggler, so, but if you're buying a used car, you probably should ask for some kind of concession on the price. But just my nature alone, I'm not really a haggler, and I haven't dealt with used cars in a long time. But I probably should have haggled the price down. I probably could have knocked $1,000 off of it, and the guy would have sold it. The guy was motivated to sell. He probably would have sold the car for any price. But anyway, I drive home. This thing chugged all the way home. It didn't really want to go over 65 miles an hour. It didn't have no power hardly. It was extremely nerve-wracking driving it home, knowing that the brakes were compromised and it was raining. I was on the highway. Whew, it was intense, but it made it home, no problems, no issues, I just left extra space. I'm actually kind of glad that it spun out when it did, because if it didn't, I probably would have drove a little bit less conservatively and probably could have potentially had it spin out on the highway compared to on the 2-lane road where there was barely any traffic. So anyway, we get all the way home and I'm looking at the vehicle. It didn't overheat, it didn't do anything crazy on the way home like that, but I get all the way home and I'm looking at it and I'm finally like kind of assessing the braking system. I pop open the master cylinder and the diaphragm for the brake fluid is totally warped and swollen and all out of sorts. So when you see that on your master cylinder, that pretty much tells you that the entire braking system is compromised on that vehicle. So I'm thinking like, wow, so the diaphragm's warped out of shape, the brake fluid looks horrible, it's like really run down, watery. The brake fluid looks horrible, it's really run down and runny, and looks like it's absorbed a lot of moisture or potentially even had the wrong fluid installed. And I'm thinking like, wow, this vehicle probably needs an entire braking system installed on it, from the master cylinder to the calipers to the ABS pump to the cylinders and the rear drums, because the vehicle had rear drums, to some of the brake hoses were compromised, or all the rubber brake hoses would have been needing replaced, along with all the metal brake lines. Some of them were already replaced, but the work was really shoddy. Underneath the hood of the Tahoe, the brake line for the left front tire was replaced, and it wasn't a custom bent fabricated brake line or anything. It was just a brake line hanging out on the front of the vehicle. So they literally had a brake line going from the master cylinder under the fan and over to the right front rear wheel, and it was just hanging there in the wrong spot, and you could clearly see that it wasn't in the right spot. So I was looking up parts, what's it going to cost me to fix the brakes? What's it going to cost me? I started running the numbers, and it was going to be at least $1,000 in braking parts, and probably like over 24 hours of labor just to replace all these parts. Master cylinder, potentially the ABS pump, all the drums and everything, then the rotors, then the pads, then the calipers, then the lines, then the rubber hoses. I was so intimidated. I was so terrified. Like, this vehicle for $2,500 just drew all my time and energy. Like, it would have taken so much time to fix everything and so much money. It wouldn't be worth it at all to do all this work. And on top of that, I didn't know the condition of the engine. I would have had to go and still figure out if the engine would even last. I mean, the oil, I finally checked the oil. It didn't look great. It was clean, but it had some particles in it a little bit. It wasn't that good of an engine. Like, literally just checking the oil told me that the engine wasn't really in all that good a shape, which is crazy. The engine wasn't even then in that good a shape. I wasn't confident that the motor would last a significant amount of time. So Donna knew right away that something wasn't right, because usually when I get a new car, I'm showing her, I'm like taking her for rides, I'm doing all this stuff, whatever. But in this particular situation, I put the car in the backyard. I didn't mention the car. I didn't say a word about the car. It just sat in the backyard. So finally, what ended up happening is I was up all night. I couldn't sleep. I was up till like 1 a.m, either researching parts or whatever, and just running numbers and running scenarios. Okay, the engine blows. How much will the engine cost me? How much will this cost me? How much will that cost me? An engine, you run the numbers, and I could have bought a pretty new vehicle. I could have bought a much newer vehicle that didn't need any work. I'm in $2,500. Engine, if you're lucky, it's like $1,200-$1,300. Brake lines $1,000. I could have just bought one of these trucks in pretty good condition for like $5,000. $5,000 would have been really good condition, and not needed to spend $4,000 on it or any time. So this whole purchase was a huge mistake. I think it's a good chance this guy might have just had these people showing up just to act like they're buying it right now. I don't know. Maybe they were real buyers, but I have no way of knowing that. After all this went down, the next day I woke up, I texted the guy I bought the truck from and said that he could have it back for $1,000 off. He could have it back. This lets me know that this was probably a scam. These people that were showing up to buy the vehicle probably weren't really interested. I told him that the truck was a little more work than I thought, and if the other people who were interested in the truck wanted to buy it at a discounted price, then I would be interested in selling it to them. Never heard a response. I told him he could buy the truck back for $1,000 less. Never heard a response. So if these people were really buying the truck, he could have bought it back for $1,000 less, and then he could have turned around and listed it again. That would have been just more money. Obviously, this person was not interested in the long-term longevity or whatever of this vehicle. I was willing to take a pretty significant hit on the truck just to get rid of it, and he was not interested in that at all, not even entertaining the possibility of that. Leads me to believe that maybe some of these people might have just been his friends, might have been his neighbors who know he'd been trying to sell this truck. Show up, hey, someone's here, just act like you're gonna buy it real quick, come on. I don't know. It's very possible, considering I offered the vehicle back to him for significantly less than what I paid for it. So anyway, now I got the vehicle, and I didn't film anything with the vehicle because I had such a sour taste in my mouth, or I felt so terrible that I even bought this vehicle. I I didn't film any video with the truck. And I was just getting ready to suck it up and go film and start like producing content with the truck, just to see, how it went, who would be interested in that kind of content. But this vehicle was in such poor condition that I would have essentially ended up replacing every single moving part on the vehicle. And I kind of started getting myself ready and preparing myself for that, and thinking like, if I took on this project, it's a crazy project, it's a ridiculous amount of work, but I think that a lot of people would be interested in it, and potentially could do something like entire vehicle built from AutoZone or something crazy like that. Brake lines, it needed hubs, it needed hub bearings, it probably needed some rear end work, it had a hum, it needed probably everything that moves on the vehicle. It would have been cool, it would have been interesting to do all the work. So I was getting ready to film, but before I did that, I posted the vehicle on Facebook Marketplace. Before I transferred the title, before anything, I put it on Facebook Marketplace. Within 2 hours, I had the vehicle sold, but I lost $500. So I sold the vehicle for $2,000. This guy came and looked at it, and I was 100% honest when he came and looked at it. I told him, like, look, this vehicle's going to need braking work. I wouldn't try to drive it in the rain. It's not safe for the rain. I spun out, all this stuff. If you want the vehicle, the price is $2,500, exactly what I paid for it. And I'm going to be 100% honest with, whatever I know about the vehicle. And the guy looked at it, he drove it, he put it in 4-wheel drive. He put it in 4-wheel low. I was nervous because I didn't even put it in 4-wheel low, and I'm thinking like, please don't break. Please don't break. Like, it's risky to put a vehicle with 250,000 miles or 215,000 miles in a 4-wheel drive low. It's very risky. So he insists on putting it in 4-wheel drive low. I got my fingers crossed sitting in the passenger seat like, please don't blow up. He puts it in 4-wheel low. He goes down the street. He takes it and puts it in 4-wheel high for a second and didn't want to go back out of 4-wheel drive. And I'm like, you just got to stop. You just got to, let it shift. And he stopped, let it shift. Boom, it came out of 4-wheel high. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm so thankful that everything worked. It didn't break. Like, I literally felt like something would break right on the spot. If I even looked at this truck wrong, something would break. The guy gives me the money. First, before he gives me the money, he says, will $2,000 work? Because it needs this, it needs that, it needs this. And I said, I don't know, I have to go ask my wife. I went into the house. I was so happy that he would offer me $2,000. I celebrated with Donna for a second, and then I went back outside and said, my wife said that would work, with a poker face, straight faced. Then he gave me the money. He poked around the car a little bit and started finding more issues. The rear door didn't work on the car. I only had the key for the ignition. Back in '99, you had to have a key for the ignition and a key for the doors. And I didn't have the key for the doors. He only gave me the key for the ignition. And he took the title. The title was already signed. I never signed it. And he took the car. I took the $2,000, went right to the bank, put it back into the bank. I took a $500 hit, but I would have spent thousands of dollars in parts on this vehicle and hours and hours and hours just to get it running. I essentially had just a rusty frame and barely a vehicle that was able to move on its own power. It was a gamble to drive that vehicle anywhere. So the vehicle sold. Donna's happy. I'm happy. Everybody's happy. And the guy just drove away. He texted me and he said that he was happy with the truck. Thank you. And I'm like, you're welcome. So I've been seeing the truck in the neighborhood. The guy lives like a few streets over, apparently, and he's been hanging out in the neighborhood. I see it at different restaurants, whatever. It's a very distinct vehicle. But that is my story. That is my crazy purchase that I made, and it was a huge mistake. But anyway, thank you for watching, and have a great day. Comment below what you think about the story, and hope to hear from you soon. Bye.